And Mike DeCoursey now joins us from the Sporting News. You see him on Big Ten Network, also Fox Sports. Writes about just about every sport and really specializes in college basketball, especially this time of the year. We had him on when the college basketball season started, and I remember wondering if we were going to get here, Mike. So it feels like we're already like champions, just making it to the start of the NCAA tournament, don't you think?
Well, I hope you remember that I told you we would.
Yeah.
I never wavered on that. One thing I never understood, Phil, is that like every other sport started and figured out a way to get to the end, but college basketball was going to be the one that couldn't make it. That was the thing. I can why college basketball can't figure it out, but everybody else can do it. That I never got. I'm happy that they have. I'm impressed by the athletes and what they've been able to accomplish. I'm a little bit puzzled by the complaints out of Indianapolis about the restrictions that they're going through, because it was a week ago that Kansas had some positive issues, that Virginia had some positive issues, that Duke had some positive issues, and everybody said the whole thing's going to collapse in once again, even a week ago, it was the same theme. Oh, it's all going to collapse when they get to Indianapolis, and so now it's a fairly restrictive environment. But I thought you wanted to play this thing. I mean, I thought you wanted to make it to the end without having to be told, oh, you got to go home. You've got positive issues, and so we're going to have to isolate you, and whoever you're playing is going to go on. I mean, look, at some point, it's 3 more weeks, and yes, this is hard, but you made it this far. Do you want to go home now because of a positive test, or do you want to go home with a trophy?
That's a good point. That's a good point. It sounded like Muss was more disappointed in the Wi-Fi at the hotel that he's staying at, the team is staying than anything
well, you
else.
Can blame that one on the hotel, I would imagine.
Right. That's not on the NCAA. If you're going to be locked inside our rooms, we're going to need some strong Wi-Fi.
Absolutely.
All right, so what's the scene in Indy right now? I mean, if it was normal times and it's even the Final Four, the place would be overrun with college basketball fans, even people that didn't have tickets. Does it feel like a ghost town? What's the scene in Indy right now?
No, I mean, I think it feels like there is a positive vibe to the fact that we're having the tournament here. I mean, this is really basketball country. I've lived here now for 7 years, and one of the things that I noticed, there are a lot of places that have hoops in the yard, right, or in the driveway. But I during the quarantine portion of the pandemic and moving on into the summer, I took a lot of walks around my neighborhood just to be able to go somewhere, right? And I mean, like every second or third driveway in my neighborhood has a hoop. It's amazing. And we even have like a neighborhood hoop too down by the neighborhood pool. But hey, somebody, who wants to walk all the way down there if I could just pop out my garage and start hooping? So this really is a place that totally loves the game. And so in addition to the logistical convenience of having the tournament here, because this is where the NCAA is headquartered, and so anybody that has to work on this massive project just has to walk or drive down the street instead of having to fly somewhere. There's the fact that this is the place that it really gets it. I mean, I can't overstate that enough. It's just as the South is college football country. And just as you and I, Phil, know that Pittsburgh is the home of professional football, is the headquarters for professional football.
That's right.
NFL football. This is the heart of basketball country, and so it's going to be very cool to have the tournament here, mostly in Indy, also in Bloomington and West Lafayette over the course of the next 3 weeks.
So let's get a little bit in here to Arkansas and the matchups that they potentially will have, and the one that they do. I know you like Arkansas. You got them ranked 11th on out of the teams in the tournament. You did your own set of rankings. Got them losing to Texas Tech in the second round. So for the first thing I would say is I'm not that worried about Colgate. Would you? Now, I'm not saying if you're an Arkansas coach. As an analyst from the outside, do you think Arkansas's got much to worry about with Colgate?
I think that what in the circumstance like that, when you're playing a seed that deep into the field, what you worry about is yourself. If you are yourself, you advance. It's that simple. That's the math. If you play like Arkansas, they can't beat you. If you don't, they can. And that's the simple equation. And Virginia in 2018 did not play like Virginia. And part of it was that they had an injury in DeAndre Hunter. Part of it was that, and part of it is that if the other team maybe starts to do some things they're not supposed to do, you can't. You have to react like Arkansas. You can't react like a team that hasn't gone through the regular season with confidence and precision and energy. And you have to react like that. If they throw in a few early threes, that's okay. I mean, you'd rather they don't, but you have to respond like you ordinarily would. And so that's the whole equation for them there. The Texas Tech matchup is a challenging one because Texas Tech has battled everybody they've played. And that's why they have the metrics that they do. Why they were very high in the net all year, even though they weren't winning games. They were still very high. In Ken Palm, they're not quite as highly ranked, but they're still 23rd. Even though they're only 17-10, even though they lost the vast majority of their high-end games. I think they were 5-10 against Quad 1, maybe 5-0. I don't think they had any wins out of Quad 1 into Quad 2. All the rest of their wins were lower end. But they were in every game, and they battle. They play hard. They don't finish great all the time, and I think that's part of the reason that they're starting to tweak their offense a little bit away from relying on Mac McClung to do everything at the end of games. They realized that it was hurting them. And for every time that Mac does all the right things, like at LSU, there are others where it just doesn't work. And so they have to be more varied than that. And that's something that Arkansas is likely to have to contend with on the weekend.
As far as the Colgate game, it's like, that's a team that, I don't know, they play exactly at the same pace as Arkansas, but they play at a higher pace than Utah State or Texas Tech. It's like, I know the committee isn't looking like, hey, this would be fun if we put these two teams up against each other, but it's like Arkansas and Colgate play a little bit of the same style. Utah State and Texas Tech are really slow you down teams that focus on certain fundamentals and everything. And so whatever team makes it into the second round, you're facing a team that's got a totally different philosophy of how you win a basketball game.
Yeah, no question. That's one of the reasons why, again, if you play like Arkansas against Colgate, it goes back to it reminds me, and this reference point may be a little bit old for you, but in '83 when Houston played Louisville in the Final Four and everybody was just blown away by how great the game was, I was sitting there thinking, this is the worst thing ever for Louisville. They've got no chance going end-to-end with Houston. Louisville was very good, but Houston, they just were way too much at a full pace. Had no chance. Louisville had no chance, and it's on a different plane. This is what Colgate faces. If they play end-to-end with Arkansas wins. That's what's going to happen. And if you had to play a more controlled, tight team that runs the clock down, that guards you, maybe plays like a pack line defense or something like that, that would be much more problematic for the Razorbacks in the first round. I think this sets up very well for them. But then they go up and they play, like you said. Both of those teams are more control oriented. Don't play at as fast a pace. Colgate's like 25th in the country in tempo. They are going to go. Texas Tech's 316th. Yeah. So they're not moving. The game that they want with this group is in the 50s somewhere. Hopefully, them having 58 points and you having 57. They'll take that deal any day. So Arkansas is going to have to try to get them moving a bit, if presuming that game happens. As well as Utah State, they would have to get them moving as well and allow their, the talent they have in the Utah State game. They would have superior talent. In the Texas Tech game, there's not a talent disparity there. There's only been a performance disparity. Tech has not been able to get over the hump against the best teams. Again, like I said, that Quad 1 stat is hard to ignore. they've lost most of the vast majority of their toughest games. But that doesn't to say they can't win them. I mean, they have beaten Texas. They have beaten LSU. They have beaten Oklahoma. So they know it's on their resume, and they know they can do it again.
Mike DeCoursey of Sporting News joining us here on Halftime. Mike, I was looking at your Final Four picks for this March Madness bracket. You got Gonzaga, Alabama, Purdue, and Illinois, and you have Gonzaga eventually winning the whole thing. I also have Gonzaga, but I'm not that confident in it just because of past undefeated undefeated teams getting into the tournament, not being able to cash in on the deal. You look at Kentucky, what's done it in the past, Wichita State. What gives you the confidence that Gonzaga can be the first undefeated champion since '76?
You know, it's interesting. You make a great point. I mean, we've had 4 of them. This is the 5th since '76. It's a pretty small sample size. That's part of it. I think that the key for Gonzaga will be the idea that they can't go into this thinking about being undefeated. I mean, let's first do the math. I mean, Wichita State got an incredibly difficult second-round game, and certainly they could have won the 2014 championship because the team that won, UConn, was not a great team. So Wichita was capable of winning it that year, but they got a ridiculously difficult second round. That was the team that went on to play UConn, Kentucky. Then you look back to Indiana State, Larry Bird. They got all the way to the title game. It took one of the all-time great players to take them down. Then you look at Kentucky in 15, played a tremendous team in Wisconsin. There were multiple great teams that year. They drew one of them in the semis. Played not their best, but still well. Wisconsin played pretty close to their best, and the difference between the teams wasn't really that great. The disparity wasn't enormous. If you played 10 guys at a time, it would have been a bit more, but you play 5, and so the disparity wasn't enormous, and Wisconsin was able to execute their way through. And then you go back, I think the one that really everyone circles is Vegas in 91. And the thing about that Vegas team that I believe got them beat was that they had never been in a game that was competitive. They beat everybody badly. The closest game they had was right there in Fayetteville. They came to Arkansas. And as I recall, they put the Hogs down pretty far, and the Razorbacks made a nice comeback to make it at least a single-digit game. But that was the only single-digit game they played all year. And when Duke battled them, they didn't know what to do. There were some similarities to that with Gonzaga up until the WCC title game when they were down double digits and they had to come back. And the best thing for them was they came back, they put BYU down, and then BYU responded and I think they got back to a multiple possession lead. I think they got it back to 4. And Gonzaga had to say, oh my gosh, they're not going away, and countered again. So the only thing they didn't get out of that game was maybe like in the final 90 seconds having to go back and forth. By then, it was pretty close to decided. So at least they've been in a game like that, and that's the one reason that I think that they have a shot that's better than a lot of the other teams. But if they get into a game against Illinois, if that happens to be their opponent, there's not that big a difference between the two of them. I think the Zags are better, but not by an enormous margin.
Can't wait to get this thing started, Mike. We're up against the break, so we got to run. Appreciate you jumping on with us, especially before this gets started. Enjoy the tournament.
Absolutely,
we'll be reading
guys.
About it.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks very much.
You got it. That's Mike DeCoursey. Been at the Sporting News for over 20 years. He's also Big Ten Network, Fox Sports, and a guy who also knows what it's like to be a Yinzer and a Hoosier. Yes, they are a little bit different in the things that they do. 877-377-6963. We just got a really great text from OK Hog Fan in Oklahoma. It's an Eric Musselman NCAA disaster preparedness kit. He has planned this out for the next time Eric Musselman has to deal with laundry being lost by the student managers, bad internet, and not being able to talk with his coaches. And it's all there on Amazon. Stay with us.